All right, so welcome back to the shop. Welcome back to Subaru 360 tutorial, tech, and tip and trick episode. I don't know, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. What we're doing today is we're finishing up on our little series on how to restore the emergency brakes on a old Subaru 360 that hasn't been used or has been stored for a while. As we showed yesterday, the e-brake cable loses its rubber protective coating and exposes the spun metal wiring or the metal housing that's then exposed to the elements, whether it's moisture or the car being parked in the grass or snow or salt. The inner cable fuses to the outside housing, and what we do to free it up and make our e-brake work again is we pump judiciously a lot of grease, usually marine grease, which is this blue stuff, into the bracket right here. And if your cable is in pretty good shape, in other words, the metal windings haven't spun off and frayed, you can usually soak the outside of this cable with fluid film and or PB Blaster, something like that. You got to take the wheel off, you got to take the drum off, and you got to get a way to exercise this cable. And I demonstrated that yesterday by hooking a pair of vice grips to this end and a pair of vice grips to this end, and I just worked it back and forth. I kept shooting it with fluid until it was free. So we've got the wheel back on, we've got the drum back on, we've got our brakes adjusted. If you're not familiar with Subaru 360 brakes, they are drum brakes, and I've got a axle down here for demonstration purposes to show you how you do this. But there's 2 sets of holes. There's this sight hole here. When you rotate the wheel around, you can see the gap between the shoe and the drum, and that tells you kind of where you are or what you need to adjust. And the other hole is this one here. You can see as I spin it around, you can see things in there. See when I pass that area right there? That's the star wheel adjuster. On the right side of the car, you go up, as in toward the hub, and on the left side of the car, you go down, and that's to tighten. So remember that. That's a little tricky. On the front wheels, you actually have 2 star wheel adjusters, one at the bottom and one at the top, because it has dual blind hole wheel cylinders. This car has a single wheel cylinder at the top and a single star wheel adjuster at the bottom. Anyhow, you want the brakes tight enough so there's no gap between the shoe and the drum, but you don't want it so tight that the wheel drags. You should have and be able to spin the wheel, and it should freely rotate. It should slow down just a little bit, but not too much. These cars don't have a lot of power, and if you tighten the brakes too much, they get hot, they're going to seize on you driving down the road, and you're going to be stuck. The car won't have enough power to overpower the stuck brakes. So while we're talking about the brakes, on this particular car, I found a couple of problems, and I'm just going to use this for demonstration purposes. There's a way that these brake shoes go on. You can see right here is there's a rubber tip on the back that's supposed to, right here my finger's touching, that goes towards the inside of the backing plate, and it rubs right back in here, keeps the shoe from bending or bowing. And the springs, you can see this spring needs to be out of the way of the cable that comes in there. If the spring is reversed, in other words, if this body of the spring that's wound here is over here, it's going to cause the spring to pooch out, and it's going to rub and interfere with the inner side of this drum, and it's going to make a clicking noise as the spring goes around all those webs. I've seen some drums where the webs are completely machined out from somebody putting the brakes on backwards. Another couple things to keep in mind is you'll see where the crossbar is for the emergency brake here, the equalizer. There's a little machined area in the aluminum shoe. You can see that fork needs to go in that area, as well as this pivot point needs to go in this area, and it sort of gives you a hint there because there's a machined surface in the shoe. I can't tell you how many cars I've seen that have come in with the shoes on backwards, upside down, broken, or wrong because people don't follow those simple instructions. It's just those little details that count. So Once you've got your return spring on your arm there that pulls your e-brake back, you should be in good shape. So I've done all the work on this particular car and everything was wrong. The springs were on backwards, the shoes were on backwards, typical. I sprayed everything down with brake clean by the time I was done, and I adjusted the star wheel adjusters, and I also cleaned the drum. You can see this is the rear drum of a Subaru 360. It has a splined center and finned aluminum body, but this liner right here is steel and it rusts. If you want good stopping power, you can't have your shoes stopping on rust. So put on some gear and turn on your wire wheel and get all that rust off there. Make it a nice polished surface. I did that as well. And then also I wanted to show my special tool for pulling drums. It does a really nice job of pulling drums because it has the 4 tabs that pulls equally on the 4 tabs of the drum, so you don't break off a tab. These drums are getting hard to find and they're getting expensive, and they're aluminum. They're not remade. There's only used ones available, and there's only a certain amount left in the world. So be careful. Use a tool like that, or make something that pulls equally on all 4 tabs when you get your drums off. Like I said before, the steel axle interacts with the aluminum and it fuses together, and it's really hard to get the drums off. So back to the car. Once we got everything back together and we've got our emergency brake trunnion hooked back together here, it goes to a solid rod, which then goes to a turnbuckle. And you want to turn the turnbuckle so that it pulls the rod together and you have just slight tension on your e-brake, like that. And we're going to test this car out, see if we did a good repair on the e-brake. I'm going to use my little step stool here to get up into the car. The e-brake is right here. Should have between 3 to 5 clicks. There's 3. Let's see if the wheels are locked. Oh yeah, can't spin it. Can't spin it. Now the real test is when I pull the e-brake handle off and release it, will the wheels release? Let's see. Handles down all the way. We've still got tension in our, a little bit of tension. This is the moment of truth. Will it spin? Ah. We should have free spinning wheels. Look at that. So there, I think we've recapped and caught you up to date on fixing our e-brake cables that are very commonly seized. The Subaru 360 vans have a totally different style cable, and they usually don't suffer the same fate as the sedans. I'm not sure why, but the sedans, almost every one that I encounter, the plastic shielding sloughs off and they fuse if the car's been sitting. Most of these cars have been sitting for some time. Even cars that are used, I've seen some that will seize. So there you go. I'm gonna back up here and get the little car in view. Cute little thing. This thing's gonna be safe again now that it has a working e-brake. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking part of this technical series, and we'll catch you on the next one. We may move on to the front brakes next. We'll see. That's a whole nother story. Thanks for watching.